Hey, I'm Brian Van, SportbikeTrackU.com, and today we're going to install a Yoyodyne race slipper clutch in our Kawasaki Ninja 400 Moto America bike. I don't have the bodywork back on the bike, but our install is already complete. Who is this part right for? This part is right for any track day or racer with a Ninja 400 that feels like the clutch is holding them back a bit. For sure, the OEM setup has been a little controversial, okay? If you're a really smooth rider like Max is, you know, he's able to go out there on that stock setup, not even heavier clutch springs, and get through a full Moto America weekend with zero clutch wear and zero clutch slippage. Every rider's different. Some people just aren't as smooth on their equipment as others are, and that's okay. Different riding styles can still get you great results. On this bike, the reason I decided to upgrade the clutch was because the Yoyodyne, and we're going to show you this as we go through the video, the Yoyodyne slipper clutch has 5 clutch springs as compared to the 3 clutch springs that are in the OEM Kawasaki 400 slipper, okay? While his corner entry was really good with that and his lap times were solid, it seemed that his race starts really were affected in a negative way with the 3-spring design using the OEM clutch springs. Previously, I had in some CBR 600RR EBC clutch springs that were much heavier duty. Those had a lot of pressure, okay? It got him better clutch lever feel, and it really seemed to help his launches quite a bit. The kid launches the bike really well. When we were at the Moto America round a couple of weeks ago and testing previously at a private track day here at Granton with the full factory clutch spring setup, his race starts were not what they were previously. So he's done enough of them now, and I feel the difference is the amount of pressure the springs are putting on the clutch plates. He doesn't like the less feel, and I think the less spring tension also doesn't get them to bite as hard as fast, resulting in just a poor launch. We're not going to know if this affects the launch or not, or how the clutch slip is on corner entry as compared to the OEM until we get out there and test it. So when we're done riding at Indy, we're going to do a follow-up video and let you all know how the clutch itself performed. If you're interested in looking at what it takes to install the clutch on this bike and talk about the adjustments and the maintenance of it, we're going to show you all that right after this. Okay, so we already have some of the stuff removed, right? We got the bodywork off the bike. I had to remove the rear set bracket from the frame of the motorcycle so we get some clearance here for that clutch cover to get it off easily. You know, you can do a clutch without draining the oil. I decided we got the first Moto America weekend on the brand new motor. Even though that's Motool 300V and that stuff is 100% good to go, I decided for the purpose of this video, instead of leaning the bike over on its side, just go ahead and drain the oil out, and I'll do an oil change on it now. Clutch cable needs to come off. Loosen your jam nuts here. At Barber, we ran a completely stock with the exception of this Hot Bodies clutch spring situation here, right? This overspring, a completely stock Ninja 400 clutch. It's got a handful of launches on it, a couple of practice launches, as well as the 2 race launches the kid did for race 1 and then for race 2. And a lot of laps. Max, he rode quite a bit. Majority of each practice and or warm-up. I know the first session he was pretty eager to get out there and he rode the entire half hour. Okay, this is a brand new OEM clutch with OEM clutch springs. If you're a Ninja 400 rider, track day rider, racer, okay, you know the clutch is, for this bike, that's been one of the problem areas, right? A lot of people have had some issues with clutch slippage, clutch wear. You know, this is, you know, with the stock clutch especially, one thing you don't want to be doing is doing a bunch of race starts one right after another, right? It's pretty tough on the clutch. So even when we were at Barber, you know, what I told the kid to do on the first lap they did before they gridded up was to just be easy on it when he launched it. We didn't want to run into any clutch trouble during the weekend. As I said earlier, you know, what took us down this Yoyodyne slipper clutch road ultimately was Max's race starts really suffered when I put the OEM clutch springs back in. Those springs are pretty weak. There's only 3 springs, and it doesn't put a tremendous amount of pressure on the clutch plates. You know, we had run some heavier duty clutch springs on the bike, and he was able to launch this thing really well with those springs. But what those springs did is they took away all of the slip that the OEM slipper clutch provides. I reinstalled, you know, when we put the new motor in, I put the stock clutch springs back in. It got him the slipper clutch action that we were looking for, and he went faster. But it unfortunately took us a little backwards on the race starts. So what we're hoping to correct here with this 5-spring Yoyodyne slipper clutch is more pressure, right? Better clutch lever feel, so we shouldn't need this external spring with this setup. And get him that launch that he is used to back again. We're removing the clutch cover now. Oftentimes when you do this, there is no need to replace the gasket. A lot of times you can just reuse it. We just had this motor done, right? So that is a new clutch cover gasket. So hopefully I'm able to pop this bad boy off and just run it again. If not, I do have 3 spare clutch cover gaskets that I have in the spares for this bike. This particular bolt from the factory is marked, right? There's a mark in the center. It goes in that position there. There's a little thread sealant on that. I haven't looked into exactly why, but every time I pulled it out, I made sure to put it back in the same hole. It's probably a water, it probably goes into a water jacket or something. All right, there is our GB overcover. All right, we've got one last bolt up here at the top. Kind of rotate the actuating arm like so, and boy, that slid off really easy, so pretty sure we're gonna be in stellar shape here. The gasket looks fantastic. There's not even really any transfer of gasket material at this point, so we're gonna be good to go. Okay. Take these 3 10s off here. These are, all fairly new components, and assuming that the clutch plates that were very recently installed are in good shape, we're just going to go ahead and save this. These will be good spares for down the road. You never know what might happen. It's a good opportunity too to look at the clutch, see if we have any signs of wear or spinning. I don't really see anything. It looks pretty good. Plates look like they're oiled up pretty well too, which is nice. Max is pretty smooth. Right, he's always been pretty easy on the equipment, aside from his crashing, of course, which is just part of it. This stuff all looks great. You'd have to measure the stack height to check the wear, but you know, I just don't see anything here that would indicate there's anything to worry about, and it has just one weekend on it. Okay, that'll be removed as well. And so everything here looks great. You get a socket, and we'll remove the inner portion of the clutch. Okay, so to remove the inner half of the clutch, you can use a clutch holder, you can use a torque wrench. The spec on that is about 97 foot-pounds. It's kind of up there. I'm going to use a cordless impact, right? And I've got a glove on. I'm going to hold it. And snap it off. I will reinstall it the same way. Some people may agree with this process, other people may disagree. What I would encourage you to do is whatever you think is most appropriate for yourself. What I can tell you is that method is what is most commonly used. Now we're able to get the clutch half off. What I'm going to do from here is, you know, just to keep this all together, I will go ahead and just kind of reassemble this real quickly. You want to make sure too, right? Keep that washer in there like so, and you have only the clutch half itself. There is a new washer that's used for the nut that's inside this clutch here, okay, that we're going to be using. So now I'll go ahead and end off camera. Just going to put all this together so I can keep it in my spares in case we need it down the road. Okay, before we begin our install, there's something really important we want to cover, and it's going to come down to clutch maintenance. The last thing you ever want to do is, you know, have a DNF for a slipping clutch, right? It's really avoidable if you are servicing the bike correctly in between rounds. What Yoyodyne has done with this clutch is they've designed it in such a way that you're able to, by just pulling the clutch cover off and not disassembling the clutch, measure the clearance between the two halves. Instead of measuring the whole clutch stack height, all you need to understand is the gap between the inner and the outer clutch half. You'll see there are 5 1/4-inch holes that are drilled in the outer half. You want to kind of rotate this. Notice there's no plates in there right now. Rotate it so you've got a good flat surface behind the hole. You're going to use the tail on the end of the caliper, like so. Put it in the hole and come up with your initial number. Just go ahead and double check and make sure I've got that. Hold this a little firmer. 3.61, and that is the number that I got previously. So you want to mark that number down. That is your starting point, okay? Once we have the clutch assembled completely, we're then going to take another measurement to understand what the gap between those two is. Your target gap here, per Yoyodyne, per Fred over there, is 1.1 millimeters. When you get down under 0.5, you need to service the clutch, okay? Anywhere in between that, you can do things with the stack height to keep it, you know, at or right around that 1.1 or 1 millimeters. To install the clutch, and go ahead and pull the halves apart now. You can see we've got this domed washer. You want to make sure the raised portion of the dome is facing outward. Go ahead and slide that over. Like I showed you earlier, we do not reuse the factory nut here. It's 97 foot-pounds if you want to torque it. Remember, we're not torquing it. I don't have a clutch holder. Realistically, most people wouldn't use it. And when I spoke to Fred over at Yoyodyne and we talked about the install and doing the video, he's like, dude, I use a leather glove. So here we go. Like so. And now we're ready to begin assembling the clutch. Okay, here's the the jug that I made to soak all of my clutch plates, right? I literally cut a 300V bottle open. We'll get all these slid over the inner hub. And this is all new oil. I'm just going to reuse this. Not a reason in the world not to. I had it sitting covered. There are two different thickness steels. I had these all separated, right, and kind of lined out the way I put this in the oil jug. The ones with the dots are all the same thickness. And then there's one, I believe it's just one without any dots. That was a different thickness. There it is right there. That one was the outermost. I measured all of the frictions independently. Most were the same thickness. I believe it was, I had it all written down somewhere. Two of them were a little thicker. Those were the two most inboard. Kind of let that drip for a minute and we'll come back. Okay, so we've got all the clutch plates in there. Now here's another thing I want to cover. The motor that's in this bike, and this bike itself, this is a 2018. I also have a 2020, right, that I have the engine out of right now. Max did 1 day on that engine while this was at the engine builder, okay? There is a difference in the clutch between these two bikes. And after talking to Fred over at Yoyodyne, the 2020 part is the way to go. If you're going to use the 2020 part, you need to install a different bearing here in the center of the outer clutch half, okay? That we've done. And the part is the actuator for the clutch itself. If you look here very closely, the one for the 2020, what is that, like maybe a mil longer? It helps with clutch life, okay? So it's just, it is the best option, right? So you can order that. If you have an 18, you're going to install this slipper clutch, an 18 or a 19. You can upgrade this, just purchase it from your Kawasaki dealer, okay? And then make sure you have the correct bearing in the outer plate of the clutch. Another tip that I got, how the clutch is oiled, right? A big part of it is there's oil that's fed through here. So there is a plus or minus tolerance Kawasaki, any manufacturer, is going to have, right? For the outer diameter of this and the inner diameter of the shaft. If you pull your clutch apart and you find the plates are really dry, right, it can cause a stuttering on a startup, a race start, which obviously you don't want. So I didn't have that problem with the bike before. This motor, he used to get fantastic race starts with it when we had proper clutch spring tension. So here is the original. And what I'm trying to do here is just establish how much play is in there. And I would say I have at least as much, possibly more. What would you do if it seemed like it was tighter? You could take a Dremel and just here, just on this edge, just put a little bit of a flat edge, remove just a little bit of material from it, right? And that would allow more oil to come through, and that's just a little tuning trick, right? Odds are most people aren't going to have to do anything with that. But this is just something that we wanted to point out. And of course, you know, this bike gets taken apart quite a bit. So even after this, when we're at Indy racing, not this weekend, but next weekend, you know, during some of our maintenance, because we have a lot of time in between sessions, I'm for sure, after breaking it down with Max when he rides that first session on Friday, please, baby Jesus, let it be dry so we get out there and really ride the bike hard. After he gets out there and rides it, you know, and he can probably do a little launch coming off the hot pit too to feel how that's going to be, and we'll do some launches here around the shop. I'm going to go ahead and just lean the bike over and have a couple of the other crew guys hold it up. I'll pull this cover off real quick, zip all this stuff apart, and just take a good look and make sure everything looks copacetic. Now we're ready for the outer half of the clutch. Go ahead and slide that over, and now we need to cover another point. This came with 5 new clutch springs. They had a Kawasaki part number on it. I Googled it. Looks like they were for a ZX6R. Okay, so we went from 3 springs to 5. It came with these red preload spacers, right? These little top hats pre-installed in the clutch. And it came with optional black. The difference between the two is just going to be overall height, okay? If you have the red ones installed, you're going to have a little less pull on the 5 clutch springs, right? A little less tension, so you're going to have more slip, okay? If you want to tune out some of that slip, maybe get a little more tension on the clutch springs, you would start off with the black preload spacers. I know a friend of mine is tuning for another rider that's out there right now, and and I talked to Fred quite a bit about this clutch. They're having good luck with the red, so those are the preload spacers that we're going to begin with. Go ahead and get your springs in. I know Max is pretty pumped to try this, you know, and I'm hoping we get, before we leave, get the opportunity for him to ride the bike out here. It's been raining the last couple days, but get the opportunity to ride the bike here outside the shop, ride it around a little bit, and then let him launch it. I did order a spare set of fiber plates when I order this clutch. Just like to be ready with spares, you never know. And I also have some different thickness steels that will allow us to tune this clutch. So let's say that, you know, after this weekend, before we go to Laguna Seca, now let's say that, you know, I pull it apart, and let's say that we're at 0.7. You know, I look at the fiber plates and they all still look like there's still life left in them, you know, but we're using them up. I have different thickness steels right here that I can then use to tune and get that gap back to the most desirable position. I like to run all these down evenly. I'll start using a cross pattern here. With something like this, you don't want to just run one down all the way. You know, just kind of keep crossing back and forth until you get them all run down, and then get them torqued. Okay, this is kind of like watching paint dry. Once I get these all run down and torqued, we're going to clean this up a little bit. You know, before I put that cover back on, I want to clean this oil out of here, right? I want to clean the oil off the inside of the cover, take a good look at that gasket. And when I come back, we'll be reinstalling our clutch cover. Okay, you know what, I almost forgot. Let's measure our clearance now between the 2 clutch halves. So we had 3.61, and now with all of our clutch plates installed, there we go, 4.71. So we're at exactly 1.1 millimeters, which is right where it should be considering all the components are new. Okay, cover's cleaned up, gasket's cleaned up, I inspected it, everything looks great, no reason not to reuse this gasket. Let's get your actuator arm and rotate it out like so. You need to be able to grab on to the end here. So get your cover slid into position like so. want to find the two bosses, right, or the locating pins, and then rotate this, and that'll pull the cover on and hold it in place. From here, all you have to do is reinstall all the bolts that you removed in the same positions they were removed from. Okay, now we got our cover all bolted up. Let's go ahead and get our clutch cable into position. This is the part I'm curious to test out and see what difference did this actually make for us. And I'll probably go over, grab Max out of the warehouse and see how he feels about the way the lever feels as compared to how it felt previously. And of course, what I'm hoping here is, man, that feels awesome. Okay, we'll go ahead and get our clutch cable. I just got a little bit of oil here on my finger. Just gonna lube that up. Let's get our clutch cable back in through our lever here, like so. Back down here. Okay, cable's all adjusted up, right? There is a lot more feel here now than there was with that 3-spring setup. Realistically, we're not gonna know until we ride it, you know, and I have the stock stuff all ready to go, and reinstalling the bike, I could probably get that done in about 15 minutes, you know, if I was pushed to do so. We'll ride it around the shop here a little bit, let the kid launch it, see how he feels about it, so we'll get just a little bit of testing in, if you can count parking lots as testing, you know, before we head to Indy. But we're definitely eager to see how the Yoyodyne slipper clutch performs as compared to the OEM Kawasaki. Our goals here were to get him better launches, because I feel like, you know, what we did with the clutch, running the stock clutch setup with the stock springs, it really took his launch a little bit backwards. He did like the less engine braking that we had with that setup, okay? This should be even a little bit less engine braking, should improve his corner entry speed a little bit, and overall lap times as well. We're gonna do some follow-up videos once we get back from Indy and let you know how the clutch performed.